Welcome back to the sim. So in this one, we're going to talk about the radio comm panel. So on the last video, we covered how to quickly download a snippet and set it up. In this one, we're going to explain in detail all the cool configurations that we added to taking it above a standard radio panel. Let's jump into it. So when we come into SPAD.next, what you want to remember is, building off the last video, we simply clicked on a display, we went to online snippets, we highlighted the complete device, did a quick search for Les O'Reilly, and we went with the most current radio panel 2021. Clicked OK, and then when it asked for replacing all events, that's out of the way. Let's go through everything we've done with this panel, because we packed in a lot. Thanks to the way SPAD.next gives us all kinds of events and event capability, we really expanded on just the basics of the radio panel. Obviously, certain things we kept the same. For example, the inner or small knob is doing our fractional increase and decrease, and the outer is doing our whole increase and decrease. Now, one of the things that we wanted to do with the displays was take it up a notch. With Microsoft Flight Sim, we now have 8.33 kilohertz spacing, but there are areas in the world where we don't use 833. So why spend all that time toggling through all these when you need 0.25 spacing? On the display, the other problem we have is there's only 5 digits. In the GUI, it represents 6 digits, but in reality, the actual SciTech Logitech panel only has 5. So what you'll notice is for the display, and because we're in advanced mode, you'll see that the conditions are shown on the left-hand side. So on the left display, we're displaying the comm active frequency. And what we've done is we're checking the Microsoft Sim variable for what the comm spacing mode is for comm 1. So a 1 means 833 spacing, a 0 means 0.25 spacing. And currently, it's a 1. Now what we did was, when we assigned the comm active frequency, we leveraged the value cutoff option at the bottom. So this is smart because it recognizes there's 6 digits, and it's giving you the opportunity to decide, are we going to drop off from the left, or are we going to drop off from the right digits? Now, one of the things about comm frequencies is it's always a 1 on the left. To be honest, you never really need to see the 1 because it's always a 1. It's 118 up to 136. So from 118.0 up to 136.990, we have all that range. When we're in the 833 kilohertz spacing, we're going to go ahead and we're going to drop off the left digit. So on our displays right now, I'm seeing 36.99 on the right, well, 36.990, and on the left, I'm seeing 18.800. For the right-hand display, we did the exact same thing, only it's the standby frequency we want to see, and we're cutting off those left digits again. We also put the standard event of comm standby radio swap, so this will transfer our comm 1 standby into our active, but then we added a few more features. So the first feature, when the radio selector device does not equal 1, so when the lower radio device, so what this is checking is where this knob selector is currently set. And if it's not also in comm 1, like it is right now, it's going to send comm transmit select 0. So it's going to change what is the comm selector when you hold down the long event. And so that way, if the below knob is not in comm 1, and we hold this button for longer than 1 second, that will make sure that it sets the SIM to transmit from COM1. So that gets us a way to change our audio panel. Great feature. We wanted a way to also flip our radios between 833 and 0.25. Now, generally we only need to do this one time at the beginning of the flight, when you realize, oh, I'm flying in Ottawa and I don't need 833. So what it does is it uses that same kind of event when pressed long, except it only will fire this event if that lower knob is also in COM1. And so the idea here is you'll intentionally set the bottom knob to COM1, the top knob to COM1. And now when you hold down that button, it is going to also change your COM spacing. So now when we look at that COM spacing event, you'll see we've set it to 0. So now when I'm looking on the display, it's going to now use these settings. When COM mode spacing is equal to 0 on the left display, still the active frequency, but right digits on the right will be cut off. So this means now when I look down on my displays, I see 136.97. And on the right-hand side, I see 118.8. Next up, we decided to add an event to help control the audio receive. The other thing we found was it's not just with Microsoft Flight Sim that you have to turn on receiving on the COM to hear it, but also turns out you can control volume levels now. With this selector, we have it that whenever the COM1 position is set, it's going to set COM receive 1 to 1, so it's receiving. And in the audio panel, it's going to make sure that COM1's volume is also set to 100. If the lower radio selector device does not equal 1, then when the position is unset, so whenever we switch out of COM1, it's going to check to make sure that the one below us is not set to COM1 at the same time. And if the bottom one is not set, so if the lower, right? So if the lower is not set to COM1, then it's going to set the receive to 0 because neither radio is listening to COM1. And it's also going to set the volume to 0. It's now allowed us to take the radio panel and incorporate the audio control that we needed alongside transmits and receives. And for those of you that fly on VATSIM, this absolutely works because VATSIM is tracking those same receives and transmits. And this was a way for us to get direct control into VATSIM. On COM2, we effectively just copied. So literally I went here, I did a copy, all events. I switched to COM2, I clicked on the screen, and then I pasted all events. So after pasting and saying yes, overwrite everything, I came in and I just one by one edited it and went from COM1, radio fraction, scrolled down the list, went to COM2, and just replaced all the events with COM1, COM2, COM1 to COM2. And then we went ahead with the spacing mode displays as well. Again, when the COM spacing is a 1, the frequencies are going to be active on the left, standby on the right. But with 1, we're going to cut off the left digits. And with 0, we're going to cut off the right digits. It also is helpful because I know what mode I'm in because the display shows me which side is cut off. We've also put in those same sets. So when we set the COM2 position, we're going to set COM2 receive to a 1, so it turns on receiving on COM2, and we're going to set the volume to 100. When we unset or turn out of COM2, we are going to check to make sure that the lower knob is not on COM2, and then we're going to set COM receive 2 to 0 and set COM2 volume also to 0. We're going to do the exact same thing with the mode switch spacing. So this is going to check that the lower selector is also in COM2. And now when we hold the button for a long press, it's going to go ahead and it's going to send that COM2 spacing mode switch. So that's going to toggle us in and out of that spacing mode. So when we hold it down like this, now it switched it to the 0.25, just like we did on COM1. And if it doesn't equal 2, so again, if the upper, or sorry, if I have my upper on COM2 and I move my lower to say nav1, then what's going to happen there is because the lower is not on 2, it's going to send with a long press the COM transmit select. So it's going to switch your transmitting mic over to COM2 for you. And again, fully works with VATSIM. The standard short press is going to do your standby to active toggle. Moving on to the navs. So the navs, they're straight up because they always use 0.25 spacing. You've got the left display always showing you the active, the right display showing you the standby. Short press of the button is going to give us our swap. And then on position set, it's going to set the audio volume to 100 for you. So the volume goes on. And then if it's unset and the lower device does not equal 3, then it's going to set the volume to 0. But if the lower one is on 3, which would be nav1, then it's going to leave the volume alone. The other thing that's nice is if you don't want to hear the ident, all you got to do is hold that button down for a long press and it is going to deactivate and set the volume to 0 for you. Same thing as we did with the comms. We came here, we went, copy all events. We switched to COM2 or nav2, I should say, and we did a paste. We said yes to replace all, and then we just went in and we replaced the ones with 2s. Everything that said nav1, nav2, we just went in and changed them to the nav2s. On our ADF, we pretty much created our own ADF session. So we wanted to be able to move the panel. We wanted to increase and decrease the ADF. Now, of course, right now, there is no ADF in the working title G1000. So this isn't going to work if you got the working title G1000 installed. If you've got the standard G1000 or you're in a different non-G1000 aircraft, then of course it's going to work. So the outer is going to change our ADF digit by 1. So similar to how the transponder digit works. And then the inner tuner is going to check that session. And if it's 0, it's going to change the 100. If it's 1s, the inner is going to increment the 10s. And, decrement. So it's using that check to check this ADF digit that we created, which is a local variable. So we created our own local variable. We called it ADF digit. and we allow it to increment by 1. We have limits on, so 0 to 3, but we don't allow rollover, so you have to roll it left or right. And so we're using the outer knob to change which digit, and then the inner knob to increase or decrease. Left side is showing us our ADF active frequency. When the position is set, we enable the ADF ident so we can hear it. We set the radio ident disable if we hold down the button, or sorry, if we unset it, it sets it to 0. And also, if we hold down the button for a long press, that will also set it to 0. Moving on to our DME. Left display is NavDME1, right display is NavDME2, and we're doing the exact same thing. When we roll into this, enable the idents, so we'll hear what they're tuned to. If we turn out of this position, position 6, and the lower one is not in position 6, then go ahead and disable those because we're not looking to ident. Now, if we want to keep them up, but we want to make the ident go away, same process. Hold down that long press, and that is going to disable the radio DME idents. Finally, we come on down to our transponder, incrementing your nav code by 1. So if the inner is a 0, so this is checking, is the upper button, so is this button not held? Is it a 0? If so, adjust the transponder code by 1. Decrement, so if it's going clockwise with the inner, again, let's check to make sure that the button's not held. Right display, showing us our code. Now, when we toggle the active transponder, so the button, this button, and we press the short mode, we are using the change transponder digit for our radio panel, right? And so as you can see, that moves our transponder digit, and right now this moves our transponder, or increases or decreases that digit. Now the outer is going to change our transponder state. So with Microsoft Flight Sim, they gave us new transponder state variables. And as you can see, 1 is standby, 3 is on or mode C, and 4 is altitude reporting. Now vPilot picks this up. So if you're flying with VATSIM, what's great is you don't have to go into your sim and click on anything. You can now use the outer knob and set your transponder state. So you can go ahead, go to 3 if what you want is mode C, or go to mode 4, which is altitude reporting. And as far as VATSIM's concerned, that turns on the mode C. You've got your transponder state 1. So display transponder state, that's the left display. Now, as far as it goes down here, we've gone ahead and we've done all of the exact same things, except for the calm mode. So we'll show you the spacing modes. So basically, we went up to calm 1 up here. We copied this event, or all events. We came down here, we pasted all, and then we had to come in and we just adjusted some of the items. So we got rid of the holding of the button because we didn't need it for doing it. We'll do that with just the top button. And then we, of course, changed the position set, what it's supposed to do. And here we change it from checking the lower device to having it check the upper device. So, of course, all of these things are found under local devices. You go to the radio panel and you can check either the buttons for upper or lower or the selector state for the upper or lower. We just rolled through, copied, pasted, deleted, modified a couple of things, And then that way we have identical stripes. So we can use either stripe for any of the same modes. You might be on COM 1 at the top. You want to go to COM 2 on the bottom, dial in some stuff. Maybe you go to nav 1, leaving it at COM 1. Or you were speaking on COM 2, so you switch that back over. And all of this ensuring that VATSIM and vPilot are going to track perfectly. All right, guys. Well, we should make it that for this video. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And come along next time. We're going to get into the switch panel. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day.